Hello and welcome to the DebtCircle Sundown Brief. Here are today's key developments from the Indian debt market. Let's begin with the top 5 highest yield listed corporate bonds. Monedo Financial Services Private Limited recorded a yield of 17% with a trade value of 26.00 lakh rupees. Another Monedo Financial Services Private Limited bond recorded a yield of 16% with a trade value of 1.00 lakh rupees. Regency FinCorp Limited recorded a yield of 16% with a trade value of 13.70 lakh rupees. Unifins Capital India Limited recorded a yield of 15.90% with a trade value of 3.00 lakh rupees. Another Monedo Financial Services Private Limited bond recorded a yield of 15.80% with a trade value of 10.00 lakh rupees. Now moving to the top 5 highest yield unlisted corporate bonds. Apex Homes Private Limited recorded a yield of 14% with a trade value of 4,001.67 lakh rupees. Edelcap Securities Limited recorded a yield of 12.28% with a trade value of 30.00 lakh rupees. Anand Rathi Global Finance Limited recorded a yield of 8% with a trade value of 29.00 lakh rupees. Another Anand Rathi Global Finance Limited bond recorded a yield of 7.50% with a trade value of 53.00 lakh rupees. A third Anand Rathi Global Finance Limited bond also recorded a yield of 7.50% with a trade value of 29.00 lakh rupees. Moving to mutual fund debt transactions. Gross purchases stood at 9,359.59 crore rupees. Gross sales were 11,307.04 crore rupees. Net investment stood at negative 1,947.45 crore rupees. Net investment for August month to date stood at negative 36,271.300 crore rupees. Now for foreign portfolio investor debt market investments. Under the general limit, gross purchases were 1,354.72 crore rupees. Under VRR, gross purchases were 99.87 crore rupees. Under FAR, gross purchases were 428.54 crore rupees. Gross sales under the general limit stood at 307.24 crore rupees. Gross sales under VRR were 122.04 crore rupees. Gross sales under FAR were 845.04 crore rupees. Net investment under the general limit was 1,047.48 crore rupees. Net investment under VRR stood at negative 22.17 crore rupees. Net investment under FAR stood at negative 416.50 crore rupees. For August month to date, net investment under the general limit stood at 484.76 crore rupees. Under VRR, it stood at 399.72 crore rupees. Under FAR, it stood at 122.61 crore rupees. For the calendar year 2026, year-to-date net investment under the general limit stood at 56,922 crore rupees. Under VRR, it stood at negative 12,890 crore rupees. Under FAR, it stood at 39,421 crore rupees. Let's look at the money market rates. The call rate stood at 5.05%. Tri-party repo stood at 4.88%. Basket repo stood at 4.99%. Special repo stood at 4.73%. Now for the India government bond yields. The 1-year yield stood at 5.70%. The 3-year yield stood at 6.21%. The 5-year yield stood at 6.35%. The 7-year yield stood at 6.64%. The 9-year yield stood at 6.78%. The 10-year yield stood at 6.77%. The 15-year yield stood at 6.99%. The 30-year yield stood at 7.46%. Moving to the Treasury bill yield and auction cutoff. The 91-day Treasury bill yield stood at 5.28%. The 182-day Treasury bill yield stood at 5.55%. The 364-day Treasury bill yield stood at 5.70%. Now for the liquidity indicators. Net liquidity injected stood at negative 345,372 crore rupees. Standing deposit facility or STF stood at 345,717 crore rupees. Marginal standing facility or MSF stood at 345 crore rupees. Moving to the MIBOR OIS rates. The 1-year rate stood at 5.78%. The 2-year rate stood at 5.96%. The 3-year rate stood at 6.07%. The 5-year rate stood at 6.27%. Now the modified MIFOR rates. The 2-year rate stood at 6.91%. The 3-year rate stood at 6.95%. The 4-year rate stood at 7.04%. The 5-year rate stood at 7.10%. Moving to the currency market. The US dollar traded at 95.07 rupees, compared with the previous close of 95.27 rupees. The euro traded at 109.83 rupees, compared with 109.72 rupees previously. The British pound traded at 128.15 rupees, compared with 128.09 rupees previously. The Japanese yen traded at 0.60 rupees, compared with 0.61 rupees previously. The Chinese yuan traded at 14.09 rupees, compared with 14.12 rupees previously. Now for commodities and market indices. Gold, 24 carat with 99.9% purity, stood at 14,575 rupees per 10 grams, compared with 14,400 rupees previously. Silver stood at 2,400 rupees per 10 grams, compared with 2,350 rupees previously. Crude oil stood at $80.47 US, compared with $80.59 US previously. The Sensex closed at 78,581.00, compared with 78,428.95 previously. The Nifty closed at 24,624.65, compared with 24,614.90 previously. Finally, let's look at India's primary corporate bond issuances. Suji Developers Private Limited announced an issuance of 20 crore rupees with a tenure of 30 months and a coupon of 17%. Bajaj Housing Finance Limited announced an issuance of 1,885 crore rupees with a tenure of 121 months and a coupon of 7.87%. The issue has been assigned a AAA rating by CRISIL Ratings Limited and India Rating and Research Private Limited. Dev Accelerator Limited announced an issuance of 100 crore rupees with a tenure of 37 months and a coupon of 11.75%. The issue has been assigned a BBB rating by Curated Ratings and Research Limited. Ambium Finserv Limited announced an issuance of 30 crore rupees with a tenure of 25 months and a coupon of 11.16%. The issue has been assigned a BBB- rating by Care Ratings Limited. That concludes today's DebtCircle Sundown brief for the 5th of August 2026. Thank you for watching. Stay informed with DebtCircle for the latest updates from India's debt markets.